Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Influencer Roundtable. Technically, the table's kind of rectangular today, but we're gonna work through it. I'm Regan. I'm the founder of Coastline Creatives, and I'm here with three really amazing drinkstagrammers.
Ooh,
or cocktail and beverage influencers. Today, we're going to talk about what it means to be a creator in this niche specifically, on and offline, and just also some of the maybe gripes or things that we're excited about just to be an influencer in this day and age. So we'll start by having Kaitlyn introduce herself.
would love to. My name's Kaitlyn Stewart. I go by the name Likeable Cocktails on all forms of social media. And it's been really fun to kind of be a part of this creator space. I feel still relatively new, so I represent the bartenders in the industry that have now come over to kind of getting creative online. So thanks.
Oh yeah, and where are you from?
I am from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And yeah, I like to feel like I'm hold down the Canadian contingent of this group. So
Truly.
Saying sorry a lot's an A. So sorry.
We'll get some stories in for sure.
Exactly. You'll hear a lot.
Justin.
My name is Justin Sajda, Thirsty Whale _ on Instagram. And I'm from America. Just kidding. But I'm from Connecticut, and I go by Thirsty Whale _ on Instagram. Probably the same thing on TikTok as well. And I make drinks at home and try and make approachable content for people to do the same at their home.
Speaking of, you made a drink for us today.
Ooh.
What do you make?
This is my Tiki Negroni. So it's coconut, fat washed, Campari, banana peel, sweet vermouth. I use Koki and pineapple rum. So it's supposed to be like a light, refreshing Negroni versus like super stiff. And the crushed ice.
It is.
Cheers.
Cheers, everybody. All cheers in spirit. Yeah. Yes. And Natalie.
Yes, I am Natalie Migliarini. My handle is at Beautiful Booze on Instagram. I currently live in New York City. I am from North Carolina, and I've been in this industry at some capacity for almost 10 years. So I'm like the OG grandma.
I mean, you're not a grandma.
I was gonna say, but I didn't say.
So you're like the fun aunt.
In the content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're the
I
fun
think
aunt.
one of the nice things about starting to work with you, Natalie, I feel like everybody knows you in this industry. You are a mainstay. You're an OG for sure. Do you feel like you have any added pressure having been doing this for so long?
The pressure I put on myself. For the most part, I think when you are putting content out on the daily, and essentially, I think all the time I think to myself, this is crazy that we actually post videos and see how many likes we get, like that to me is like psychotic in a way. If you really break it down, like what are we actually doing? Obviously, like the meaningful content is about the followers and the content you put out. But I think for me, it's like the pressure that I put on myself to essentially keep going and following like all the changes in social media and keep putting out content that can help people essentially.
And that you like.
Yeah, I mean, just keep learning stuff and challenging yourself. It's if there's no challenge there, if you're not, my biggest thing is taking risks. If you're like not taking risk and putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation, then I think like the longevity of this is hard because it's you can get burnt out. It's a creative process, and doing all those things that intertwine together can build on each other, and you could be like, I'm over this. But when you put yourself constantly into new situations and branch out, it's like once you start and get in a routine of things that your followers like a video style or something, like challenging yourself to do something different just to put that out there, may be well received, and you may bring in a different kind of audience. But I've done that. I mean, I used to shoot on baking trays for years. And people were always like, where do the baking trays go? And I'm like, I had to try to put myself out there and put my face to the content that was really important. So I wanted to become a better photographer, a better video person, and with that, I had to stretch my skills and get comfortable with even shooting different backgrounds.
What about you, Justin? Do you feel any pressure? Besides right now.
Besides
Oh,
the
yeah.
pressure you put on yourself.
Yeah, this was pressure, but not really. I think we did when we started, because when we started social media, I still had a full-time job and like a small, modest side business. I did landscaping for the longest time, so the pressure was really just time and like getting home and having to work more. I didn't really like. It wasn't really. I can keep going, but Emily, my wife, films me, and for her to get home from work and then she has to film me is like, it gets stressful, especially when we have like brands and things aren't going right with the brand. So that's the only pressure I really have. But since I've quit my job, I mean, I'm like retired. So there's not really much
Hardly.
pressure.
I'll make sure you have plenty of work, Justin.
Yeah, I felt pressure coming here because everyone's on their laptops and working, and I'm like, I don't really have anything to do today, but we'll whip out the laptop too and just make it look like we're doing something. But
Well, it's different when you have two people,
yeah.
because my partner helps. Like when you split the work, you don't have to be on your laptop.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
What about you, Kaitlyn? I think, so people know you to be this amazing, award-winning, travel around the world bartender. And so now changing over into this
Yeah.
arena, how do you balance the pressure from your industry peers and your audience?
It is a very interesting question. For the longest time, up until probably the beginning of this like new year, I refused to call myself a content creator or like an influencer, because like first and foremost, I'm a bartender. I am somebody who gets behind the bar, makes drinks, hosts people. Like it's an all-encompassing thing. And I did drinks videos more so at the start, kind of, or in the middle of like the pandemic, when I couldn't have people sitting at my bar. And I would get my regulars sending me messages all the time being like, oh, I miss sitting at the bar. Like, I miss your old fashioned. I miss your margarita. I miss that jungle bird or whatever. Like, how do you make it? And I found myself just like going back and forth, sending them recipes. And I was like, screw it. I should probably just like film these and just like put them up online, and then they can watch how to do it and follow along, and you know, they can take the tips that way. And then I found that there was this massive audience for it. Like I met Natalie back in 2018 when nobody was really in this space doing drinks content on like Instagram. And it was more food content than anything. And I met her back then and I was like, what an interesting job. Like how do you do that? Like, what's this all about? And then fast forward to 2023 and I'm sitting with her being like, I can't believe you've been doing this for over 5 years. Like that is a commitment, like from when I met her.
Yeah.
But yeah, so being like this bartender, I feel a lot of pressure. I used to anyways, from like other bartenders that I was, you know, work friends with or whatever. And they're like, Instagram bartending, what is this? And I'm like, dude, you laugh now, but this is the future. And now all of them are scrambling to build accounts because they're like, oh, gone are the days are still photos. Gone are the days are, you know, A, B, C, D, whatever. And everybody's trying to jump in this space. And I'm like, I'm really glad I started when I did, because I've got to jump like a head start on these things. And I get approached more by brands and people in everyday life being like, hey, are you likable cocktails or whatever, than when I won the world's best bartender title, because that was such a small niche. And now I've opened up this massive like target audience where I'm like, this is really cool. Like I used to be known for this. Now I'm kind of known for this, but at the same time, both. And it's really fun to be able to merge the two sides of my worlds. If that makes sense.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
I'm curious, do you think, and this might be a little bit of a controversial question.
I like controversial questions.
Okay, good. Controversy. Do you think the weight of winning World's Best Bartender has been diminished over time now that you have the ability to cultivate your own audience and establish your own thought leadership?
I think it's different because the spaces are very different. When I go and I get invited to, you know, things like 50 best award shows, or I don't know, just different like tales of the cocktail, doing all this stuff. Like I'm still in this space as I hate tooting my own horn, but I'm still in this space where other people come to me and they're like, oh my gosh, you're so-and-so. as like a bartender who's like, you've inspired me so much and I strive to like achieve the things that you have, and other people who I look up to view me as an equal. So for me, I'm like, that's still like, I get such imposter syndrome that way where I'm like, ugh. But then it's really cool when I'm with those people and other people come up to me and like, I love your channel, this and that. And they're like, huh? Like what? like, so it's an interesting juxtaposition that way. So, but when I'm on doing videos, I like Justin, I'm like, I want them to be approachable and user friendly. I could show you the most like wild and crazy techniques and this and whatever on a video, but I'm not doing it for like the tiny 1% niche of like people who are in the bar world.
Yep.
I'm doing it for people who want to do this stuff at home, who take an interest in what we do, and then take that interest and go to the bar and are like, I know what you're doing because I saw Justin or Natalie or Kaitlyn do it, and now I understand, and now I have way more respect for like what you're doing.
Right.
So being able to like, I don't know, cross those world over. Did I even answer your question?
I think you did. I mean, I think it's what you're
Tangent.
saying is like they're weighted in their respective audiences, like
Definitely.
in their respective communities.
Yeah.
Because I still think winning World's Best Bartender means something. But does it mean something to your audience on social media? Probably not.
Half the people don't know.
Yeah.
And every once in a while I'll bring it up and people are like, huh? Or like somebody else, like we'll see like some hate comments, and then one of my other like loyal
She's the
followers
best.
are like, do you realize who you're mansplaining to right now?
Yes.
And I'm like, for me, I'm like, whatever, like what's one? But every once in a while I get a little bit sassy and I'm like, I'm clapping back to this one. And they're like, just to let you know, like, and then people are like, oh yeah, in 2017. And I'm like, yes, I've lost everything that I know and I have no idea how to bartend anymore because of that. Like, but no, it's fine. It's fun though. It's fun.
With her saying that world, that bartending competition, I tried to like merge into that a little bit because I would essentially go, that's where I met Kaitlyn at one of those competitions, and be media there and try to show the regular person at home that
This world exists.
amplify bartenders and show the opportunities and the competitions and how insane they are to win.
Yes.
It's totally, people at home have no idea what you have to do in those types of competitions. Like there's a
pressure.
speed round, the pressure, all the different challenges. It's insane. Like she was saying, she made like 60 cocktails for one competition. Like
That's wild.
we've been judges at those competitions. So they're totally different worlds that really the home consumer
true.
doesn't understand as much because it's just a little tiny part of the industry.
And I think you've done a good job amplifying bartenders in a way that
1000%.
a lot of other creators maybe don't because of their style of content. Although, Justin, I think you do some nice nods to like when you're creating cocktails that have been created at other bars and you provide that credit.
When I can and when I have the time, for
Yeah.
sure. On TikTok, not as much because it's so like, there's just, I don't know, there's not, even on Instagram, I can write it in the description.
Right.
Yeah.
I like to do that. On TikTok, you can't write too much, and then I have to keep the video short. So, but I do when I can, for sure. But I'm not gonna like, if I'm making a daiquiri or something, I'm not like, you're not getting a tag.
No. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I mean, you talked about imposter syndrome a little bit too, and it sounds like you experience it on both sides of the coin.
Definitely.
Natalie, you were in a scenario not too far in the distant past. More people have experienced it recently, but for those who don't know, Natalie was a contestant on Drink Masters on Netflix. And she was very much positioned as the home bartender amongst all these other bartenders that work in bars.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you experienced imposter syndrome there, or do you? Yeah.
I started feeling imposter syndrome before I even got there. I didn't know who the other contestants would be, but regardless of that, I felt like, so making simplistic cocktails at home that are like 3 or 4 ingredients, like no infusions, anything like that, is totally different from going to Drink Masters or like world class. It's like, it's a totally different scenario. So before I got there, I already felt behind. So involved like 6 weeks of like just studying cocktail books, practicing cocktails I had no idea, practicing methods. So when I got there, I very much, I'm not going to say psych myself out, but a lot of it was, imposter syndrome, putting all the pressure on myself. but that's why I say, like, putting yourself in uncomfortable scenarios and taking risk can pay off. I'm not saying that I got the payoff because I got kicked off on the first episode, but there's always like
No, you
a
got the
learning
payoff.
moment
Yes.
of I didn't feel like I could do that.
Right.
And so to be able just to complete a time challenge for me, when you're making cocktails at home, it's not like you're making them at a bar. You can just take your time. Like nobody's sitting there waiting for something. So that was a big boundary for me. And I mean, I said it on there. I'm not used to making cocktails on a specific time frame.
I give Natalie such props, and I've said this to her so many times, because she did the hard thing. Like, she put herself on this like platform for all types of scrutiny, for all types of praise and everything in between. And of course you get those people who are like, oh, the home bartender or like the Instagram bartender is on there, and
totally.
you turn to them and you're like, why didn't you do it?
Yeah.
Why didn't you submit yourself? Like, do you think you could have done what she did? Like, I honestly, cheers to you, Natalie, because that was like, it's to put yourself up against people who do this, like, not that you don't do this day in and day out for a living, but it's just a different type of,
It's a different thing.
But like, you were like, yeah, I'm here. I'm ready to do this regardless of what people have to say. Like, I'm standing in my power, and like, hell yeah. So
I just did it. I was like, I'm already this deep in. I just did it. But it is after years and years of sitting at the bar and watching bartenders do their thing. It's just so amazing. And as a home person, doing like guest shifts and going into a bar and making cocktails, like 3 cocktails for 2 hours, it is hard work. So, I don't know if on my platform Beyond Drink Masters, if I can amplify bartenders in any way I can in the industry, I think it's very important, because consumers don't always have the whole picture of what that job really involves.
we appreciate you.
Would you do it again?
I don't know. I feel like now that I've seen it, I mean, it was the first season of this, right? No, I'm not going on to
Redemption
that again.
round.
I've done it. I would feel a little bit more prepared after seeing it, but it takes a lot to prepare for something like that, especially in the molecular mixology space. Not many bars do that anyway, so that's like a whole nother thing. Yeah, I don't know.
It's a strong maybe.
It's like asking will you write another book. It's the same thing. I don't know. It's like it takes a lot out of you just to.
Yep. Justin, is that something you would ever consider doing?
I don't know. Probably not. Just because, like we talked about this stuff before off camera, but they could trash your reputation if they want, and I have like a good reputation, and we make like just wholesome content where I think a lot of families watch like my videos, and like little kids are like, I squeeze my own citrus. So I'm like, I just wouldn't want someone to tarnish my reputation just for views or whatever the case.
Yeah, reality TV, man.
It's for me. It's not for me, but I can definitely appreciate going on there would be nuts for sure, like nerve-wracking. And that's another thing I would probably like die. I had like a heart attack before I got there.
I thought I was gonna die. There's a clip of me running, going, "Lord have mercy," and they piped that.
That soundbite was key.
Just like, I'm gonna try to get through this because I'm already in too deep, but
no turning back now.
So you talked a little bit about, who your audience is. I've had the pleasure of interacting with you, Justin, in person and on video calls from our work together, but you have a much different persona online and in your videos.
Then like how I am in person.
Yeah, I would say so. Is that, obviously it's very entertaining how you create videos. And I think I've scrolled back pretty far on your content. You've always had kind of this personality and these catchphrases. Was that intentional, or is that just how you started doing it and you doubled down on it?
Everything we did on, like, since we started, that's just how I am. The reason I am so outgoing and funny on our videos is because I'm at home with my wife, who I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
yeah.
When meet new people, it's just not the same. It takes time. For me, it takes, like, if I'm with my best friends, then yeah, I am very outgoing, just saying goofy stuff. But if I don't know someone for a long time, that's just how I am. It takes me a long time to warm up to people.
We'll get there, Justin.
Yeah, I get super nervous, which people probably don't realize, but
No,
yeah, I get
I
nervous.
think I was so surprised the first time we had a conversation. I was like,
And-
he's not calling me a poop. What's happening?
And that makes me nervous to have conversations with people that I haven't met because they're going to have this expectation that I'm going to be like, hey, you suck, like, so I get, that makes me nervous just because people have an expectation of what they see online. But if you don't know me, then you wouldn't know that I get nervous and stuff like that.
Well, now the world knows.
Yes, they do.
What about, I mean, you talked a little about like your balance of imposter syndrome, but then going on a show like that, I feel like you would crush it. You have friends who are on that show.
Yeah, I mean, I had many talks with like the producing people that put it together, and I politely declined. Mostly just because, like, kind of what Justin said, like, reality TV, you have like no way of writing the script how you want it to go.
Yep.
And that's why I commend Natalie for doing that, because she put herself in that position. But for myself, I kind of just thought of other people who have, like, I don't know, walked the same path that I have in the bar world. And I thought, like, would they ever do this show? Would they ever be asked to do this show? And my answer was always no, no, no. Like, imagine like Eric Lorentz on Drink Masters? Probably not. But so for me, it was, one of those things where I'm like, it would be really easy to like have somebody known as one of the world's best bartenders on there and then cut them first, or kick them off first, or put them as like a persona of like, oh, the know-it-all who thinks everybody else is a peasant compared to them. And I'm like, that's not me, that's not my style. I like to hype people up and not bring people down. So, and then when I watched the show, I had mentored a lot of the contestants in past different competitions, and I judged a lot of them in past different competitions, and the judges themselves, like, I worked alongside both of them. I've given seminars with them. So it would be a really weird juxtaposition for me to like be on that side.
And maybe Kaitlyn could be a judge.
There you go. I did suggest that. I was like, listen, if you ever need a guest judge or anything like that, I would be happy to do it. But I mean, it was really amazing to see so many talented bartenders and just our profession be showcased in that light. And I honestly think because of like, accounts like ours and many others, bartending has become way more popular. I remember when people would come into whatever restaurant or bar I was working at, and they'd be like, hey, what other like restaurants should I go to in the city? Or I'm traveling to this place, where should I eat? And then I started slowly seeing this trend where people would come in and be like, where should I go get a drink? What are the best bars? If I'm going to Japan, where do I go to get a cocktail? If I'm going to, I don't know, Greece, where do I go to get a cocktail? Pardon me. And that's because it's become more and more mainstream through social medias. And then we finally get a show that's about cocktails. There's so many cooking shows out there. So I like to think that we're a little bit of a part of that, of, making it more accessible.
Definitely.
Yeah.
To the average
So
person.
for sure.
Because I started
awesome.
seeing, people always asking, like you said, for restaurants, and then people asking, I'm in this city, what bar should I go to? And that's when we started the Bar Cross series, just to showcase, to have another dimension of my account that's not just like me putting my cocktail recipes out there, also showcasing bartenders and some of their favorite recipes and bars around the world. So it's a good way to get recommendations to people.
Okay, switching gears. We've talked a lot about the bar world and maybe the intersection that you've had with the bar world at varying degrees. But now let's talk about being an influencer. I feel like the word influencer kind of has a negative connotation to it these days.
I would never tell anyone.
Think? No, it makes me cringe.
Yeah.
What-
Which is
okay.
so funny, right? I thought
What
I
do
was
you
the only
want to
one.
be called? I think for me, I call the people that I work with creators.
I'm a creator.
Yes, creator,
Yeah.
general
I've
consensus.
come to terms with that. Yep.
Influencer is like someone that like wants to be recognized as something.
Yeah, I can
I'm
see
an
that.
influencer, it's like you're just, and didn't want to call myself a content creator either, but I'm like, I don't really have another word for
But that's
it.
what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it took like a long time to say I'm a content creator.
Why didn't you want to call yourself a content creator?
Because I don't know. When I started, I didn't really think about the people at home as much as I did bartenders, because I listened to like so many podcasts and stuff, and learn stuff that I don't even need to know because I don't work at a bar or anything. But I cared more about what a bartender would think about my video than someone at home, because someone at home doesn't know how to make a daiquiri. A couple of years ago, like, people weren't making this stuff at home. Like, it's changed dramatically.
Yep.
So I like, touching on what we said before, like, we have had a huge impact for sure. But I always cared about what bartenders thought about me, because they're the ones that I looked up to when I would go to a bar in like New York City or Portland, Maine or something. So I wouldn't want them to watch my video and be like, this guy sucks. I'm like, he doesn't do anything right. So I always cared about what they thought.
Yep.
And then the people at home, you know, caught on too. And then I started doing very more approachable things. So, but to start and just be like, I'm an influencer, I feel like people would have just like crapped on me.
I think people also use that like almost against you. Like, you know, like you'd be in situations like, what do you do for a living? And like, you know, I create content, but I do like other stuff as well. So like when I say like, you know, all the different things that I do, and then you get like that one person who's just trying to like poke at you, like they could be your friend, or like, you could be friendly with them, but like, oh, you're an influencer, like, you know what I mean? You get that like, I'm like, come on.
I don't like
and then but now I turn around and I'm just like, yeah, and
There's this weird feeling of shame,
It is.
and I don't know why that exists. I have some theories. Do you want to hear one of my
definitely.
theories? So I think women championed the space of content creation and influencing a lot earlier than men did.
Like in the beauty spaces in particular.
Beauty,
Yeah.
fashion, travel, even,
a
I
lot
would
of
say those were largely championed by women. And I think because it was perceived as a women's profession, it immediately had this kind of negative connotation to it, that it's like, oh, well, you're kind of taking the easy road out, and you're maybe like, you're just creating content because you don't have any other hard skills.
Oof.
And I don't know, I feel like that's like in essence a small part of it, because I'm more willing to tell my female friends or acquaintances who I meet and I'm sharing what I do for a living, what I do, than men. And I think there's like a small little bit of shame that comes along.
I think a lot matters on what your content is too.
Fair.
I mean, there's quite the variety out there.
You're telling me. Gotta take a drink for that one.
We're both like, yep.
I mean, when I first started, I didn't even know what people would be like, what do you do? And my parents would be like, what do you do? Like, I don't understand what you're doing. And I'm like, I don't understand what I'm doing either. I just try to
But
teach
I'm doing
myself
it.
how to make cocktails. And I had bought a kit camera from Costco, and I just started posting recipes to really just teach myself how to make cocktails, and my friends were asking me for recipes. And so as that kind of grew, I did feel that shame, and I felt what I don't like, and I do this all the time, is I started explaining myself. And I'm like, no, like, oh yes, I take videos, and I'm a professional photographer, and I do stuff on social media and judge cocktail competitions and host them and this and this and this. And I'm like so tired of explaining it.
Right.
I don't know. Like, I just feel like to make this job work, I have to do so many things, and just putting it into that one box of like an influencer is a hard pill to swallow for me.
Fair.
Yeah, I'll tell people I'm in marketing. Just
Yes.
because, not
You
that
are.
I don't feel any shame of what we do, but I don't want to explain.
There's not as many questions.
Yeah, when you're like,
Marketing.
if you're like an older person, they're like,
Yeah.
what do you do?
Marketing.
How do they reach out to you, the brands? I'm like, I'm in marketing. I don't know what to tell you. And I'm like, a manager handles all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I love
They
that.
asked me
Yeah.
at Customs the other day, what's your profession? I said photographer.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
just
yeah.
thought,
You have to
I wouldn't tell them
oversimplify it.
anything
I mean,
weird.
I like to go by, I mean, because I also do this, but even just lumping everything in together, I say that I'm a consultant and recipe developer.
Yeah.
Because half the time you're developing recipes for
Yeah.
the brands that you're making cocktails for, or what have you. So when people hear that, they're like, "Oh, cool!" And they're, you know,
Yeah.
it's just something that it's like a little bit different. Like,
Yeah.
you develop recipes. What does that mean? It's like, yeah, a brand comes to me, and if they want to, you know, whenever you see something, develop a cocktail recipe for them so that they can put it on their website, do with a
Yeah.
video, do whatever. So
and that's
Yeah.
a big deal. And like
Yeah.
for me, I try to kind of create that by showcasing bartenders. No, I'm not that.
yeah,
I'm making cocktails at home, but I also respect bartenders, and I also like to showcase what they do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I think you all do recipe development to some extent.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't like, you definitely are like, let me think about what works for what this brand is trying to accomplish
100%.
with this campaign. As far as, I think I brought this up on previous influencer roundtables with chefs, with vegan chefs, and they're kind of experimenting with new to everybody products because they're using crazy ingredients that they're trying to make an ingredient do something that it doesn't normally do. When I want to hear it from you first, like, talk to me what the process of recipe development is, because I think a lot of brands and agencies don't know. They just think you're like opening up a book and saying, that recipe will work.
Yeah, I mean, again, it depends on like the brief. If a brand is looking for like a specific direction, if they want something, but if it's like free reign, a lot of the times I have to think about the audience and who it's being catered to, because like I said earlier, like I could come up with some really crazy, strange things, but is somebody actually going to look at that recipe and be like, hell yeah, I'm going to make that. That sounds really cool. I can do that. So you kind of have to take that approach too, where you're like, okay, if you want to start to somewhat complicate this, you're going to have to explain it really well in the description. But I like to look at the classics first and foremost and be like, okay, what's an approachable classic, say like a daiquiri or, a sour style cocktail? Then I'm like, okay, what are the components of a sour style cocktail? You've got spirit, sugar, and citrus. What can I do with those things? I can split the base of spirit. I can do the spirit with an aperitif, a liqueur, whatever. The citrus, there's a multitude of different types of citrus out there. Same with like the sweetener. Can I infuse the sweetener with something interesting and then kind of start to develop a recipe that way? But then also when it's for a particular brand, you want to showcase the brand and highlight the brand. So, if you're doing Florida Cana, you're like, okay, this is very raisiny. There's like some banana notes. There's something. So what's going to complement that and uplift the hero ingredient in this drink just as much, be an interesting cocktail. So, I mean, I do a lot of traditional cocktails on my channel, on my page, but I also do a lot of traditional cocktails with like really simple riffs. But you'd be surprised at how many people, and I'm sure you guys have had the same thing happen, where you put up a video, you're like, nobody's gonna make this. This is way too weird and complex and advanced, or not even advanced, but just like too many steps.
Right.
And then the amount of comments that you get that were like, made it. It's in the works, it's doing this. And I'm like, oh, I thought video was going to be a flop, and this is like one of the best ones on here right now. So you got to give the people enough credit too. But yeah,
But a few years ago, that may have not been the case.
exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now they're like,
Gung ho.
That also reminds me, you love doing clarified cocktails. And as somebody who consumes a lot of drink and beverage creator content, hours a day content, I'm always curious and like, man, how many people are really going to make a clarified milk punch at home?
You'd be surprised.
And then the amount of posts that people tag you in being like, look at what I made at home. And I do know that there's a sense of accomplishment for creating something like that, because there are so many steps. Do you think that you're inspiring people to, think longer term when it comes to their cocktails versus how do I pull 4 ingredients out of my fridge and make something tasty?
For sure, yeah. Because I started doing the clarified stuff online because I get burnt out on like this thing, like you can make an old fashioned every week and it's gonna do well, but I'm like, then like it goes back to like the bartenders, like this guy just makes old fashioned every week. So, I think about everyone. But the clarified stuff was more for myself. I'm like, I want to have fun and just make a nice cocktail for myself. So I'm like, I'm gonna make a punch, make like an oleosaccharum, and then just clarify it. And I'm like, I don't care if it doesn't do well. It's kind of like the point where like you don't give a crap anymore. And then we posted, I think their first clarified cocktail did pretty well, and then people were doing it. I was like, all right, let's do like a. Then I started picking ones I'm like that I've never seen clarified, like a zombie, so many ingredients. But people did some zombies, Mai Tai, super approachable. People did those, and you can pick your favorite cocktail and you can pretty much clarify it has the right acidity.
Yeah. And people always have so many questions about it too, which is like great for engagement. So you're like, perfect, bring all the questions.
And a lot of people don't listen, or like I show them exactly what to do the most simplistic way I can. Like even Kaitlyn pointed me to like using paper towels because of another creator or a bartender that posted that.
Instead of cheesecloths?
And they're like, I can't, it's not working, it's taking so long. I'm like, what'd you use for your filter? And they're like, cheesecloth. I'm like, so you don't did you see what I did though? I used it, and they're like, yeah. I'm like, I should have trusted. You should have trusted them. Yeah, you should have trusted me. I'm like, and then people will troll me and be like, you're supposed to add the cocktail or the hot milk
Yeah.
into the cocktail, and I'm like, did you see what I did? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, did you see the end result? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, then what's the problem? Yeah. I'm like, a lot of people have like misconceptions about clarification just because
Yeah.
I like even me. I trust bartenders. But, bartenders are always learning too.
Yep.
So I'm like, just because a bartender did it doesn't mean that it can't be improved eventually.
Yeah.
Because everyone's always growing. No, not one bartender knows everything.
There's also like a sense of like the Google bartender, you know? So
Yeah.
it's like you get a lot of comments where people are like, well, my Uncle Terry's best friend Ted down the street works at this bar and does it this way. Or like when I Googled it, I'm like, that's
Yeah.
great. I'm like, but also
This
like
is living proof.
like
Yeah.
we got experience with it. Like there's lots of different
Yeah.
results in the search engine, but yeah, it's
Living proof. Is that a pun?
living proof.
That's a good creator handle.
That'll be our next creator account, living proof.
I'm gonna go claim it right now. So what's a technique that you're maybe excited to see? Because I do think clarification has kind of popped off and we've seen a lot more of it lately. Maybe I kind of want to start down on Natalie's end because you get to observe a lot of competitions as well as consume a lot of content online. Do you think there's another technique that's coming or emerging that we're going to see more in 2023?
I don't know so much about technique, but we talked about how a big trend at like any kind of cocktail conference or something like that you go to is like how to be more sustainable in bars and things like that. So there's a lot of people in the industry talking about that. I don't know about in terms of consumers if they're thinking about that when they're buying certain products or not in terms of like techniques. I don't know. What I see the trend on Instagram though are things coming back. It's like jean jackets. Well, they're always in style, but you see all these things that started and then they're coming back.
We were talking about 90s style cocktails.
They were saying that about New York, and I'm like, I don't know. Somebody was like, New York's about like 90s style cocktails, like
disco drinks.
LITs and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. I haven't had like an LIT in years, but like I remember just trying to come up with creative concepts, and I did like a ton of like clarified cocktails like in 2017, and I feel like that's coming back. I don't know if anybody made them. That was in the era of just photos, so it's hard to tell because you weren't showing the steps. I mean, that's before stories,
Right.
even and smoke and all of those things. But I don't know, it's weird. I went into a really cool bar in New York that did like, you could have a clarified cocktail this way that was like a pina colada. You could have a clarified cocktail this way that was like a strawberry daiquiri type thing. And then you could have like the face off where they put them both together. So like layered clarified cocktails. I mean, that's just a bar thing, but it was delicious. It was like a Miami Vice type situation, but clarified. So I do think that putting these clarified cocktails online, they're popular in bars because people are seeing them, and if they're not making them at home, they can go somewhere and try them.
Totally.
Yep. So definitely the clarified cocktails. I'll have to think on that. The sustainability. A lot of bars are trying to figure out ways they can be more sustainable. But I forgot if you were asking me in the home bar or in the regular
I think
bar,
either.
or just in general.
What about you, Kaitlyn?
I would say, I mean, I see a lot of people interested in like fermentation. So whether it's like tepache, which is like a pretty easy like ferment to be able to do at home. I've done a couple of tepache videos that have like really blown up, and they still get hits like a year or so later. But then there's always people who are always like, can you do something with like lacto fermentation? And I'm like, you guys are interested in this stuff? Because I am, and I do this at home for myself. But like, hell yeah, I'll get out my like Noma's Guide to Fermentation and do some stuff for you. So I think that some of those like old school techniques, like literally old school from like the 1700s, that the reason why they're still around, I think those I would like to see come back more, and I think they are.
Yep.
And then in like the bar space, I think like a lot of people are like setting up carbonation rigs and like carbonating everything. So on that side of things, like on like the really geeky tech side, carbonation, and then for like the at home, I think fermentation is great because you can make your own ginger beer, you can make tepache, you can make like shrubs and just using lots of different vinegars. There's a lot of culinary techniques coming into cocktails.
Justin loves a shrub.
Shrubs.
Big shrub guy. Big shrub
Huge
guy.
shrub guy.
There's one thing I know about Justin. He's a big shrub guy.
Good old shrubs.
He wasn't landscaping, right?
It's true.
Makes sense.
My one dad joke for the day.
Any techniques that you want to start talking about more, or that you think other people are going to start talking about?
Bottled citrus, right?
Bottled citrus.
You want to get into bottled citrus?
How can we make it?
Super juice.
How can we make it taste nice? For like trendy stuff this year, I think culinary style cocktails, like you kind of touched on it, like food cocktails, cocktails that taste like food is like pretty popular, and there's even
Like, what
great,
kind of food?
just
Like cheeseburgers?
even something like sesame oil, like
Yep. Do lots of stuff.
you know. But what's that? We talked about that bar, like Double Chicken, or
Yeah,
Yeah,
double chicken, please.
chicken, please. All of their cocktails are
Yeah.
culinary.
everyone talks about their stuff, and there's creators that remake their stuff online, and the views are insane. And I'm like, no one's making this at home.
No, nobody
I'm
is. Like,
I'm not doing
it's
it.
an intense process.
Yeah, and I'm like,
Definitely.
yeah, and it's for me that's not like my thing. I don't want to drink a chicken cocktail, but there's serious skill involved in that, so I can appreciate that. For home stuff, I think people they definitely like to clarify stuff, especially since they know it's from like 1700s around there. Because if you go into a bar like Dante or something, you want like a vintage Negroni, it'll be like, I mean, it was $45 a few years ago. It's probably like
Inflation.
$75 now. But I'm like, if you want something vintage, like something old, 100 years old, like you could make what they made,
Yep.
or at least something super close.
That's cool.
So I think
Well,
that's
it's like all those techniques, oleosaccharides, and
yeah,
you know, even just
and even sustainability, like oleosaccharin, like peel. It's a lot of work, and you have to be into it. But if you buy like a ton of citrus, I'm like, you could peel all that, make syrup out of it, and like you're good. And that's really smart for bars to do.
You also like telling people to make the syrups and squeeze the juices and do the things.
Yeah, because
And-
you're just like wasting your money, like buying simple syrup at a store. It's like crazy.
it's
True.
literally simple.
And grenadine, people like don't even know. Like grenadine is pomegranate, and people think. I used to think it was cherry syrup because it tastes like cherries, but that's
I did until about 3 seconds ago.
yeah,
It's not bad.
yeah.
The store-bought brand does not even taste like what it's supposed to taste.
Right.
It'll
No.
totally like screw your cocktail up. Like
Yeah.
Yep.
it's not even.
Key takeaway, no grenadine.
Yeah, no,
It's just like
Well,
the bottled citrus.
no roses,
yeah, no
grenadine.
roses, grenadine.
Sorry, roses.
Yeah, but grenadine is just everyone has a recipe, but it's just pomegranate juice and sugar, and then you can add like different spices if you want to
Get
kick
a
it
bit
up a
of
notch.
pomegranate molasses to it.
Ooh. I think one of the cool overarching themes I think of this entire conversation was you can bring the bar home, but there's still some experiences that are always better in a bar.
Totally.
And I think a lot of you straddle both of those lines in a lot of ways. And I think that's something that as an industry, we want to continue to honor. At least that's the sense that I get from working with all of you in whatever capacity that we've worked together.
For sure.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a nice way to end it. Like, go to bars, drink at home, make the things that you want to make at home, and go out and enjoy other people's craft and celebrate how hard that they work
Totally.
to make something tasty.
Also, like, enjoy the process.
Yeah.
I
Drink
feel
what
like
you like.
exactly. Drink what you like. You get a lot of people who apologize
you
for
like.
oh, I usually just drink this, and I was like, who cares? Like, if you want to just drink that, go for it. But also, here's a way that you can elevate it.
Yeah.
And just take it. If you drink like I don't know, like rye and ginger, that's your thing. Totally drink it. But you could also fat wash that rye with a bit of sesame, and create a whole other cocktail.
Yep.
If you wanted to, but
if you wanted.
And for like people at home, once they start learning stuff, like don't go to like your local dive bar and troll them because
Yeah.
they don't have a clarified cocktail or something. You have to like read the room. And
Read the room.
And when people get really excited when they start making stuff at home, they go to a bar and they're like, "This cocktail sucks." It's like, make it better at home. I'm like, "Where'd you go? Like, did you go to Chili's?" Or you're like, so you have to read the room. And I think home bartenders get like really excited about that, and they're like, they have such expectation, and they go out and I'm like, well, you read the room. Like, don't go to a dive bar. and order something crazy because they're gonna hate you. Just order a beer or like an old fashioned. As long as there's whiskey in it, like you'll be fine.
Yes. I think,
It's like humility thing too. When you start learning, you have to be humble.
oh, definitely. I love a great dive bar, but I'll drink a Magners
Yeah.
when I'm
Hell
at
yeah.
a dive bar.
Yeah, but yeah.
Boilermaker all the way.
Don't put a dive bar down because
Yeah.
it's not a craft cocktail.
Yeah.
Go to a craft cocktail bar.
Yeah.
And drinking, for me even, I love all the cocktails that we create and seeing the creativity, but drinking is also situational. It's about like being around people, enjoying your time, and that's how I got started, wanting to share drinks with people. So like, don't take yourself too seriously. It's still about like having fun. I mean, we've
yeah.
all made cocktails that have tasted shitty, but there's always like, again, a learning
Not me.
point. Not Justin, but there's always
right,
a
Natalie.
learning point, and it's not always about the actual drink.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
It's about
Well-
the experience or learning or whatever.
In that vein, thank you all for taking the time to chat.
Thanks for the drink.
Thank
You
you.
got a little bit left in there. Cheers with us. Come on,
Just
Justin.
like,
Yes. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.